Hello everyone, in this video we'll be using the Pythagorean Theorem to find the distance between 2 points. So before we get started, what is the Pythagorean Theorem? The Pythagorean Theorem is a relationship between the sides of a right triangle. So if I drew squares off the sides of this right triangle, the Pythagorean Theorem says that the area of the two smaller squares will occupy the same space as the big square, or that a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So keeping that in mind, let's find the distance between the following 2 points. What's the distance between negative 2, 2 and 2, negative 1? First, do you guys remember? How do we write a pair of coordinates? What value goes first? Is it written as x, y or y, x? So we know that these points are written as x, y, where the x-axis is the axis going from side to side, and the y-axis is the axis going from top to bottom. So using that, let's go ahead and plot these 2 points. Which direction do I need to move in order to plot negative 2, 2? I need to move left 2 and up 2, so that's going to be right here. And which direction do I need to move in order to plot 2, negative 1? I need to move right 2 and then down 1. So I want to find the distance between these 2 points, or I want to find the length of this line here. Finding the length of that line is going to be the same thing as finding side C of my right triangle. Don't see a right triangle? Well, I can draw a line going down here, and a line down here, and connecting those 2 points, I created this right triangle. And so the distance that I want to find is actually going to be side C of my right triangle. So let's go ahead and use the Pythagorean Theorem. First, let's look at side A. I see that side A has a length of 3. And so what's A squared going to be? What's the area of this square here? I know that 3 squared, or 3 times 3, that's going to be 9. Now let's take a look at side B. What is the length of side B? B has a length of 4. And so what would B squared be? What would the area of this square here? I know that 4 squared, or 4 times 4, that's going to be 16. So the Pythagorean Theorem says I combine the areas of the 2 smaller squares to get the area of the big square. So combining the 2 small squares, 9 plus 16, that's going to be 25. So to figure out the side length, I need to ask myself, what side length times itself will equal 25, or what is the square root of 25? And that answer is going to be 5, because I know that 5 times 5 equals 25. So the distance between these 2 points is going to be 5. All right, let's go over our next problem. Here I want to find the distance between the following 2 points, negative 1, 4, and negative 6, negative 2. Just like before, I can connect these 2 points by creating a right triangle. So I'm going to draw a line going down here, and a line here, and now I have a right triangle. And the distance that I want to find is going to be side C, is going to be the hypotenuse of my right triangle. So let's look at side A. So here's side A. Side A has a length of 6. And so what is A squared? What would be the area of the square here? I know that 6 squared, or 6 times 6, that's going to be 36. Let's look at side B. Side B has a length of 5. And so what's B squared going to be? I know that 5 squared, or 5 times 5, that's going to be 25. So using the Pythagorean Theorem, A squared plus B squared is going to equal to C squared. So the area of this square is going to be 61. So in order to find the side length, I need to ask myself what side times itself equals 61? Or another way of saying that is, what is the square root of 61? So one way to get close, I know that 8 times 8 equals 64. And since 61 is a little bit smaller, I know that side C has to be a little bit smaller than 8. So the square root of 61 is going to be somewhere around 7.8. So this length here is somewhere around 7.8. Right? So before we move on to our third problem, let's dive a little bit deeper into problem number 2. When I draw side A and side B of a right triangle, I create this red and blue arrow. Where have you seen these arrows before? So thinking back to linear equations, do you guys remember the template for a linear equation? The equation is written as y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope. And so what is the slope of a straight line? Well, the slope is written as the change in y over the change in x. So what you guys might notice is side A of my right triangle, isn't that the same thing as my change in y? This change here. And looking at side B, isn't side B the same as the change in x? So instead of graphing each of these points, one way I can solve for the Pythagorean theorem is by using the change in y and the change in x to figure out side A and side B. So let's try using that for the next problem here. So instead of plotting these points, let's just compare the x and the y values. So first I want to figure out what side B is going to be by comparing my x values. So from 3 to 15, I know that that change is going to be plus 12, so that side B is going to be 12. Now let's compare my y values. From 4 to 13, that's going to be a change of 9, so that side A is going to be 9. Now that I have side A and side B, I can figure out what side C is going to be. So let's take a look at A squared. 9 times 9, or 9 squared, is going to be 81. And 12 squared, or 12 times 12, that's going to be 144. And so the Pythagorean theorem says that I can combine the two smaller squares to get the big square. So 81 plus 144 is going to be 225. So in order to find side C, I need to ask myself what side length times itself equals 225, or what is the square root of 225? And I know that 15 times 15 equals 225. So the distance between these 2 points here, side C, that's going to have a length of 15. All right, let's go over our last problem. I want to find the distance between the following 2 points, between negative 5, 3 and 3, negative 1. Again, the Pythagorean theorem states that a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And now I know I can find side B by comparing the x values. So from negative 5 to 3, that's going to be a change of 8. So I know that side B is 8. Now comparing the y values, I know from 3 to negative 1, that's going to be a change of 4. And so side A has a length of 4. And now I can square both sides to figure out what c squared is going to be. So 4 squared, or 4 times 4, that's going to be 16. And 8 squared, 8 times 8, that's going to be 64. So combining the two smaller squares, 16 plus 64, I know that c squared has to be 80. So to figure out side C, I need to ask myself what number times itself equals 80, or what is the square root of 80? And I know that since 9 times 9 is 81, it's pretty close. C is probably a little bit less than 9, so it's probably around 8.9. So one way that can help us find the distance between 2 points is that side A of my right triangle is going to be the change in y, and side B of my right triangle is going to be the change in x. And once I figured out A and B, I can use that to find side C.